I mean, when you're planning to attend a university and a campus, you want that experience.
Yeah.
You don't want to take some online classes that you'll just be scrolling through in your living room with your parents. My brother, he's set to graduate, not this Friday, but the next one. And of course, that'll be a virtual graduation. So, you know, he's a senior in college and won't have to decide whether or not to re-enroll in the fall. But it just completely altered at least the second half of his senior year.
Yeah, another thing, too, we'll talk to Eduardo really quick. I think he's back online. Eduardo, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry.
All right, robot voice is gone. Yes, gotcha. Let's jump back into this. Emma was just talking about your brother, right, about this whole situation here. There's a lot of students out there that may be reconsidering college altogether.
Well, that's right. And it's not just a 20% enrollment decline, but actually there are a lot of higher education research and data firms that have been tracking these numbers every week from the coronavirus. And we've covered those at the Leadership Institute Campus Reform. And another notable one is that 10 to 11% of high school seniors have already made other plans for the fall because of the virus. So they have already said, we're not going to four-year institutions. They're pursuing things like non-degree programs, maybe online degree programs. And so when you think about that coupled with a 20% number, again, that puts these colleges and universities in a really tough position come fall because they may not be able to recoup these students ever again.
Yeah, what about those smaller universities as well? Are they able to handle this lack of revenue, quite frankly, and of course lack of students?
So what a lot of people don't know is that a lot of colleges and universities operate on a semester-to-semester basis. The tuition is their operational budget. And so you take one semester away from them, that's killer. And I think a lot of the reason, in addition to finances, that students are saying they're having to consider other options right now is, again, something we've talked about before, is the online education. So something else that this poll found is that 70% of students say they prefer in-person learning to online classes, which seems fairly evident. But I think a key reason for that is because these students are seeing that they're paying in-person rates for something that is not in person. And so, you know, a lot of people have positive views about online education because it's supposed to be a cheaper alternative. Nobody said online education and online degrees were supposed to cost the same thing as an in-person class. And a lot of people are seeing that. A lot of students are seeing that. And they're realizing, hey, if this is how it's going to be for the fall, count me out.
Eduardo, that's a good point because charging more for it, it doesn't add up at the same time. I'm thinking back to days when I was in college. I remember it being offered that you could take online classes, but I remember it also being stressed. It is not for everyone. Not everyone learns the best in that way. That's really not a one size fits all.
That's exactly right, and that's something that we've been hearing from students throughout the virus that we have tried to speak to. So again, the online degree has its merits to maybe students who have to work through school, students who have a different schedule, or people who are returning to school, people who don't want the traditional model. But what we hear is from a lot of students is, hey, I don't learn the same way on my computer that I do in class. I feel like I can't ask my professor the same questions. I feel like I don't have access to those in-class or out-of-class tutoring centers. So there are a lot of factors that go into an online degree, but it is certainly not the same as an in-person education. And again, when you go back to price, a lot of students are realizing, hey, you know, this isn't what I signed up for. This doesn't really work best for me. And so if it's going to be like this going forward, you know, I'm going to have to look at alternatives.
Yeah, you can't even go to in-person office hours. You'd have to, of course, kind of schedule a virtual meetup for that. But I do want to switch gears with you, Eduardo, just for a moment here. Campus Reform reporting that more than half a dozen House representatives have launched a probe into Chinese efforts to infiltrate U.S. colleges. Well, what are the details on this? Which representatives have signed this letter? What's this all about?
So it's a lot of the conservative Freedom Caucus members like Jim Jordan, Virginia Fox. And while an investigation sounds nice, you know, Congress is a little late to the party here. So we've been reporting for years on the influence that China has had on campus, whether it's funding some of these Confucius institutes, which have been accused by our intelligence communities of propaganda spreading and intelligence theft. Or whether it's even the fact that, for example, last year China even tried to buy a university here in New Jersey. They tried to buy a university outright. So the influence that China has had tried to obtain on campus has been going on for a while. I think it's nice that an investigation is coming, but really the time now is for action. You know, we've already done the investigating. Even our intelligence communities have said this is a threat. So what Congress needs to do is to prevent further influence on campus. They need to block the attempts to steal our intellectual property and to steal research on campus that has been going on for some time.
It's a really interesting story that you're following, and thank you for sharing with us. We appreciate it. Digital reporter for Campus Reform, Eduardo Neret. Eduardo, thanks for joining us.